The doctor, who had been paralyzed for 20 years, made a shocking decision. He injected bat DNA into his own spinal cord. To prevent any uncontrollable incidents during the experiment, he asked his assistant to tightly strap him onto the lab bed. However, an accident still occurred. Mercenaries suddenly broke in, distracting the female assistant. When the assistant looked back toward the lab, she was stunned to find that Morbius had mysteriously vanished from the bed. She rushed into the lab to investigate, and what she saw horrified her. Morbius was bizarrely hanging upside down from the ceiling, with terrifying fangs protruding from his mouth, constantly letting out snarling growls. The mercenary was so shocked he froze, then raised his gun and fired. That action completely enraged the mutated Morbius. He lunged at the mercenary and tore him apart in a frenzy. The assistant hurriedly shut the hatch and frantically pounded on the glass, trying to awaken Morbius's consciousness. Just as Morbius was beginning to calm down, more mercenaries arrived, raising their weapons at him. The assistant, Martine, tried to stop them, but was pushed to the ground and knocked unconscious. Seeing Martine injured, Morbius completely lost control. What little humanity remained drove him to smash through the bulletproof glass and charge out of the lab. Seeing the assistant lying there with her eyes closed, Morbius believed she was dead, and rage instantly overwhelmed him, making him utterly lose his mind. He dodged the bullets of the mercenaries and launched an attack at an incredible speed, wiping out everyone in the room within seconds. The remaining mercenaries quickly sealed the door while Morbius was feeding on blood. However, once he made contact with the blood, a more primal hunger awakened inside him, especially when he looked at the motionless assistant. His killing intent intensified. Even the heavy door couldn't withstand his relentless battering, and soon the remaining mercenaries became helpless prey. Before they could even locate their enemy, Morbius dropped from above and slaughtered them mercilessly. When Morbius regained consciousness, he was shocked to find that his previously frail and barely functioning body had become muscular and powerful. Not only was he now youthful and strong, but his legs moved as nimbly as any ordinary person's. Filled with confusion, he returned to the lab. But seeing corpses everywhere, he had no memory of the brutal battle that had just occurred. He turned on the security footage to look for answers, and when he saw the images on the screen, Morbius couldn't believe he had turned into a bloodthirsty monster. A wave of intense nausea hit him, and he began vomiting uncontrollably. At this point, he knew it was unsafe to stay there any longer. He deleted all the surveillance footage and called for extraction. Then, grabbing the remaining serum, he dove into the sea to escape. He needed to return to the lab and destroy all related data. But just as he stepped back into the lab, his legs weakened and his body uncontrollably craved blood. It was clear the experiment wasn't perfect. There were flaws. He struggled through the weakness to open the refrigeration unit, which was filled with blood used for routine research. Morbius held a bag of human blood but hesitated. He didn't want to become a monster consumed by desire again. So he drank a vial of blue synthetic blood instead, which managed to suppress his urge to hunt. After returning to normal, Morbius was intoxicated by the thrill of a healthy body and momentarily forgot his mission to destroy the lab. His eyes had mutated into bat-like ones, and he had vaguely developed a bat's unique echolocation ability. It was as if he had formed a subtle bond with the bats. These normally violent and bloodthirsty creatures now showed him unexpected affection. They jumped and chirped on his shoulders like siblings, and their remarkable intelligence allowed him to quickly master his new powers and indulge in them. However, he soon realized his one flaw. He needed to feed on blood constantly, like a bat. Sensing that he was on the verge of losing control, he locked himself in the lab to test what would happen if he didn't feed. His vital signs quickly declined, the pain worsened, and bat-like features began to reappear on his face. This meant that without a timely supply of fresh blood, he would die of weakness. Fortunately, his friend Milo arrived at the lab to visit. For years, Milo had also suffered from a disease and lived in constant pain. His only hope was that Morbius would develop a cure soon. Seeing his best friend turned into a monster, Milo anxiously asked how he could help. By then, Morbius's mind was clouded by bloodlust. He used blood to write a word. Without hesitation, Milo retrieved a blood pack and, ignoring the danger, opened the lab door to hand it over. After drinking the blood, Morbius visibly transformed once again into a healthy, powerful figure. Milo was stunned by the sight. He realized the bat serum had worked and eagerly begged Morbius to inject him with it. But Morbius flatly refused. saying he couldn't control the darkness inside him. This wasn't a cure, it was a curse. For safety's sake, he urged Milo to leave immediately. Looking at the friend who was once like a brother, now so distant, Milo was filled with sorrow as he walked out of the lab with heavy steps. As night fell, a female nurse at the research center was about to turn off the lights and end her shift, when suddenly, a strange noise came from behind her. She spotted a shadowy figure flickering in the darkness, swiftly approaching her, and sensing danger, she quickened her pace, ready to leave. But out of nowhere, a pair of sharp claws stretched out from behind and instantly drained her dry. The next morning, Morbius heard a commotion in the hallway and rushed out to investigate, only to find the nurse collapsed on the floor. Believing it was his own doing during a moment of lost control the day before, he grabbed a blood bag and prepared to flee, only to run directly into a detective. The officer wanted to bring him in for questioning, and out of self-preservation, Morbius immediately struck back. The detective was no match for him, and was quickly knocked to the ground. Morbius, realizing he couldn't stay, darted away, but he soon found himself trapped in a dead end. Awakening his abilities again, he sprinted up a tall building at incredible speed, even dodging bullets with ease. But just then, a powerful gust of wind swept across the rooftop. Unable to control the airflow, Morbius nearly fell. When he looked up again, the detective was already waiting for him. Soon after being imprisoned, Milo came to visit Morbius under the pretense of legal counsel and discreetly left a blood bag for him. However, as Milo left the prison, he accidentally forgot the cane he'd used since childhood. As the prison doors opened one by one, Milo, who had always walked with a limp, suddenly moved with the agility of a healthy man. His once frail body was visibly strengthening by the second. It was clear he had secretly injected himself with the serum. Morbius realized the nurse wasn't his victim. It was Milo who had drained her, and with his violent nature, he would surely bring disaster upon the world. He grabbed the blood bag from the table and gulped it down, instantly transforming into a fierce, bat-like form. Then, he unleashed his claws and struck the bulletproof glass with full force. With a thunderous crash, the seemingly indestructible cell shattered. A yellow blur streaked through the smoke, and in the blink of an eye, Morbius was already hanging from the wall. By the time the guards arrived, he was gone. All that remained was broken glass and the wreckage of his escape. To track down Milo quickly, Morbius activated his echolocation. Invisible sound waves rippled across the city, and soon he locked onto Milo's presence amidst the chaos of the streets. Milo was lost in the ecstasy of killing, leaving destruction and panic in his wake. Morbius didn't dare waste a second. He leapt from the skies. But when he confronted Milo, the latter responded with indifference, even madness and obsession in his eyes. He firmly believed that the mysterious power of the bats was salvation, and he was willing to become a bloodthirsty monster to attain it. To him, this strength meant total control over life and death, a power he'd never known after a lifetime of disability. Drunk on power, he could not be persuaded. He refused to give up his abilities. Realizing Milo had completely lost control, Morbius was frantic. He chased after his friend, desperate to stop him before things went further. The two engaged in a heart-pounding chase through a dark, narrow tunnel. Every time Morbius closed in, Milo would either speed away or turn back to attack. Their struggle eventually sent them both crashing onto a subway platform. Knowing he couldn't reason with Milo, Morbius decided to return and research a suppressive serum to put an end to this. But just then, detectives who had responded to an earlier call arrived. Unaware of the situation, they pinned Milo against a wall. They didn't realize this would soon cost them their lives. Watching the now fully deranged Milo, Morbius was filled with helplessness and sorrow. He didn't want to turn against a brother he had known for over 20 years, so he chose to retreat and wait until Milo calmed down. But Milo, consumed by hatred, pursued him relentlessly. At that moment, a train roared through the tunnel, stirring a powerful gust of wind. The surge of air acted like a jolt of electricity, awakening Morbius's dormant bat genes. Using the train's wind, Morbius suddenly gained the power of flight. He spread his massive wings and soared like a black bolt of lightning, breaking free from Milo's pursuit. The detectives, arriving later, saw the nurse's body, shriveled into a dried corpse. In their eyes, everything pointed to the fugitive Morbius. Without hesitation, they issued a warrant for his arrest. At this time, Martine had already been discharged from the hospital. She had absolute faith in Morbius and refused to believe he was the killer. To shake off the police who were tailing her, she boarded a city bus, just as Morbius found her. He told her the whole truth and explained that Milo had completely lost control. He had to quickly develop a cure to stop this disaster from spreading further. With Martine's help, the two hid in an underground factory and built a temporary laboratory. However, during the research process, an accident occurred. Martine accidentally cut her finger, and a drop of blood quietly fell onto the lab table. The scent instantly filled the air like a key, awakening the bloodthirsty desire deep within Morbius. His eyes turned blood red in an instant, his fangs emerged involuntarily, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. Fortunately, through sheer willpower, he managed to suppress the urge and avoid a catastrophe. Meanwhile, Milo was thoroughly enjoying the sensation of having superpowers. After gaining his strength, he eagerly went to a bar and tried to flirt with women, hoping to make up for the emotional experiences he had missed due to his disability. Just as he was about to succeed, the woman's boyfriend suddenly appeared and claimed her. Rage surged within Milo, and he nearly revealed his powers on the spot. But realizing there were too many people around, he suppressed his fury and left the bar pretending to back down. When his target emerged, Milo revealed his monstrous form and leapt from the shadows, feasting to his heart's content. Afterward, he accidentally caught sight of Morbius and Martine sharing a tender moment on a rooftop. Jealousy flared in his heart, and a twisted plan began to take shape in his mind. The next morning, detectives found a corpse near the bar, killed by Milo. They initially believed Morbius had committed another murder. But after reviewing the surveillance footage, they spotted a stranger on the screen. The news quickly reported the incident, and the orphanage director recognized the beast-like figure as Milo. Worried that Milo would be completely consumed by darkness, he sought him out and tried to persuade him to give up killing and return to the right path. But Milo, now blinded by bloodlust, would never give up his powerful abilities and return to his former weak self. Staring at the nagging old director, a wicked idea suddenly crossed Milo's mind. He thought, if he killed the director, Morbius would surely go mad. Once Morbius drank human blood, he'd never return to his kind self and would understand Milo. He'd stop hunting him. Then the two of them could go back to being just like when they were kids, playing, laughing together. So without hesitation, he slashed the old director with his sharp claws. At the same time, after relentless effort, Morbius finally succeeded in developing a suppressive serum. As long as the antibody was injected into the body, it could instantly kill the bat gene that carried superpowers. To ensure nothing went wrong, he made 2 doses, one for Milo and one for himself after Milo was eliminated, to erase this terrifying curse for good. But before he could act, Morbius suddenly received a call from the director. On the other end, the director's voice was faint, clearly near death. When Morbius arrived at the scene, he found the director lying on the ground, barely breathing. Just as he was overwhelmed with grief, he suddenly heard Milo's voice. Only then did Morbius realize the murder was just a diversion. Milo's true target was Martine. He wanted to kill her to push Morbius over the edge and make him lose his mind. Morbius was completely consumed by rage, but he had no idea where Martine was. He immediately activated echolocation to scan the city, but Milo seemed to sense Morbius's search and raised his claws toward Martine's neck. Morbius saw this and dashed down from the rooftop, racing toward the location he had just locked onto. Even though he was giving it everything he had, he was still a step too late. When he arrived, Martine was already lying in a pool of blood, barely alive. She looked at Morbius with eyes full of reluctance and hope. She only wished her death could mean something. Morbius understood, and the two shared a passionate kiss. They had long been deeply in love, and now they were about to be separated by death. Morbius no longer held back the bloodlust within him. He sank his fangs into Martine's neck. The taste of human blood awakened his murderous nature, and all the grief and fury exploded in a deafening roar to the sky. Milo believed he had helped Morbius break free from his chains and excitedly invited his brother to conquer the world together. But he had no idea that Morbius now had only one thought in his heart: to tear Milo apart and avenge Martine's death. In the heat of their fierce battle, both of them plummeted from the tall building. But having consumed large amounts of blood, Milo was full of energy. After a brief adjustment, he launched another attack on Morbius. At this point, Morbius, already drained, was no match for him. His abdomen was slashed open with a massive wound. And before he could regain his footing, Milo struck again. Morbius was slammed into a billboard, leaving him dizzy and disoriented, almost entirely unable to fight back. But even so, Milo had no intention of letting him go. He grabbed Morbius and, with a powerful leap, smashed him straight through the ground. In the critical moment, Morbius extended his claws to slow his descent, avoiding a brutal impact like Milo's.
You could do better than this! Come on!
It's not a curse! It's a gift!
Infuriated by Milo's repeated humiliation and attacks, Morbius used up the last of his strength to send out a distress signal. The next second, the ground began to tremble violently as countless vampire bats swarmed out of the sewers, gathering endlessly around him. A wave of fear surged in Milo's heart, but he forced himself to stay calm and picked up a steel pipe, making taunting noises. Unexpectedly, that act awakened the fully evolved Morbius. Now having fully mastered the essence of the bat, Morbius's power soared, and Milo's attacks became completely ineffective. Seizing the moment, Morbius commanded his army of bats to pin Milo down tightly, then drew a serum and injected it into Milo's body without hesitation. In his final moments, Milo seemed to regain a sliver of sanity, his once crazed eyes now showing a hint of regret. But by then, it was already far too late. Filled with sorrow, Morbius bid a final farewell to his old friend. Just then, loud alarms blared overhead. Large reinforcements had arrived. Morbius knew he couldn't stay any longer. With the bats shielding him, he silently disappeared into the shadows. At the same time, Martine, who had consumed Morbius's diluted blood, suddenly opened her eyes, a strange light flashing within them. Clearly, this story was far from over.